Hi everybody, this is TheHande Mäkinen, and as you can see, I am joined by Retrokaiser.
Hello.
And welcome to this random video podcast thingy. I don't have a name for
No,
this.
it's not White Devil the movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, but this is a random video podcast, and I guess it's a sort of a kind of post mortem of the platformer rank videos that came out on my channel a little while ago, and I wanted to bring Retrokaiser on to discuss what's going on. That's why you can see him, and hope you enjoy the
Unfortunately.
and I hope you enjoy the little slideshow in the middle. I didn't want to do just a podcast, so I decided it would be interesting to just see our faces for once while we're discussing this. All right, and like I said, this is going to be mostly about the tier list, the platformer tier list that I made. And if you don't know what the hell that is, if you haven't been watching this channel, well, yeah, a little while ago. Well, this technically started last year when I did like a big tier list of all the adventure games I ever played. And then I started thinking about a possible follow up to that. And the idea of doing a tier list about platformers was something that, festered in my mind for a good while. And then this year I decided, well, I could try doing a tier list of uh, most of the platformers that have been relevant to me in recent years, and by recent I mean the last 20 years. I'm not gonna go crazy like with the adventure game tier list. I'm not gonna even attempt at ranking every platformer, but instead I would only rank platformers that I've played in the last 20 years or so because well, not to repeat too much, but there are obviously a lot of games that I have played but weren't in the ranking, but like literally I haven't played them since the 90s, so I don't have any fresh takes or anything like that. And then even with that, I still managed to forget about a few, which I did include during the actual ranking video, and we'll maybe discuss one of those. But so today we're gonna just kind of dive in a little bit into the tier list that eventually kind of formed, and I brought Kaiser along to comment and give his 2 cents on these matters. So Retrokaiser has been on the channel multiple times. If you don't remember, he's been a guest on the Let's Play channel as well. We have the horror story podcast that we do occasionally, and And why don't you, Kaiser? I'll hand you the mic next. Why don't you tell us what you've been up to recently?
Nothing much actually. I've just been trying to get my streaming career as if it's a career for me. I've been trying to get back into streaming, and I have done. I've actually, as of this record, I've just returned on Sunday, and I'm currently streaming Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and I'm hoping to stream a bit more than that in the future. Yeah, other than that, nothing all that much has been happening. It's
Yeah.
been pretty boring over in my
Yes.
end.
Okay. So it's twitch.tv/Emerald Rangers, correct?
Pretty sure.
Okay,
Hopefully.
good.
Maybe.
Or put it in
If you
Google.
find if you find a video if you find a video of some hot girl in a hot tub, then you found a channel that's much better than mine.
I don't know about that. All right, so platformers. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I have some questions prepared for you, Kaiser, as well, just to get the ball rolling if you want. So, what would you say is or are, you don't, you can say multiple ones, but what are some of your favorite platformers, personally?
I like Super Mario World. That's a really good one. That's also one of the first ones I ever played as a kid. Super Mario 64 is a fantastic one. That's like sorry. What? Trying to find my words here, but
Yeah,
no,
and
Super Mario
if I can,
64 is
we can stick to 2D platformers because that's what the ranking was about. It was about 2D
okay.
and 2.5D platformers. Yeah. So you said Mario
So
World already.
cool. So he's Mario World, the Sonic the Hedgehog games, Gex, the original Gex. That's another good one. What's another? But my favorite ones I'd have to say would have to be some of the Wario Land ones, like Wario Land 2 and 3.
All right. Okay,
Like,
this is going to be interesting to talk about because 2 and 3 are the ones that I haven't played. So and
uh,
that's reflected in the ranking as well. I did mention that as well. And I did do a little one-off of the first Wario Land on my Let's Play channel a while back. That was when I was tooling around with the Super Game Boy recently. So, well, not recently. I keep saying recently. It's like, when did I say that? Oh, that was last year. That's happened to me
that
multiple
one's
times.
good too, but 2 and 3 is just they perfected the Wario formula really well. Um, don't know if you mind me talking about that game
No, no,
just a
no,
little bit.
absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah.
Like I know you've played Wario Land 1 because you just said it. You know how that plays more like a Mario game, but Mario's a little bit heavier. But it has a game with like power ups, lives, and whatnot. Well, Wario Land 2 and 3, they kind of dump the live system and whatnot. They kind of make you immortal except for the final boss, and they focus more on the treasure hunting element of Wario, and it's really good because sure, you go to a level, it's like this is small, but there's actually a lot more to these levels than that. Like you can find a lot of hidden areas, find a lot of cool treasures and whatnot. It just feels special. It just feels like a bigger than just your standard 2D platformer game because they've actually add elements of adventure into it.
Well, there is a lot of level exploration in the original Wario Land as well. What
Yeah,
you just
but
said
they
specifically, because I have played Wario Land 4 though. That sounds like a lot, but like Wario Land 4, and I'm not big on that. So that actually does not sound like a good advertisement for me because I don't really enjoy that. But I am curious. At least Wario Land 2. Uh, was that one already on the Game Boy Color?
originally it was an original Game Boy game. Then it came out on Game Boy Color like the next year or so.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty. Well, okay, sure. I have a vague. I mean, I have very vague memories of 2 and 3 just coming out from like all the Nintendo advertisements and things I saw. But I have no first-hand experience with that. But that one still had like Captain Syrup as the villain. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's at least. And then the third one had like an original. Yeah. Villain.
Well, the
Yeah.
third one has Wario get trapped into like this glass dome world, and he has to try to find a way to escape from that. And he's doing tasks for this one mysterious being.
Yeah,
And I don't want to
it's
spoil
always some
anything other than
mysterious.
that.
It wasn't Wario World like that as well.
I don't remember. I haven't played much of Wario World.
Hey, you streamed it, or you had a whole Let's Play series of it
I
years ago. But
recorded.
okay.
I didn't
All right,
record much of it. I only recorded like 3 parts of that,
all
and
right,
that's
yeah,
very early into the game.
yeah.
And it was
Well,
okay. Honestly, not my favorite platformer, the Wario World.
all right. Well, you mentioned quite a few of your favorites, and that's fun to see. The Wario series is one of those series that I do actually I am still I'm curious to get into because it was a bit on and off for me. Like I played like the first Wario Land. That was the first game I had on Game Boy, and I loved it, and still love it. It's still when I did that little one-off of it, I was just reminded of just what a good game it is. And then Wario Land 4 is the most recent Game Boy Advance game that I beat, but it's not the most recent that I've had like a serious attempt at beating. It's just the one that most recent that I beat because Game Boy Advance is kind of where I fell off the handheld. Where I kind of left kind of handheld gaming behind me. I've never really looked back. But Wario Land Shake Dimension, which I did put in the rank as well, I like that a lot. It was a fun game. I actually really that was the thing that happened with the tier list is that once I had done it, what has subsequently happened is that I've gone back and played quite a few of those games, and some I'm kind of saving up now as future Let's Play projects as well. But I haven't been able to locate my copy of Wario Land Shake Dimension. I'm not sure where it is. But yeah, but that one had like
It's shaped off into another dimension.
tish. Yeah, but but you know the sprite art in that was excellent, and also you know we have a little slideshow going on in the behind here. Is another game that I did start playing. Well, two games that I started playing because I did the tier list. I went back and tried Limbo again after a really long while.
Fantastic game.
It is, and I've been also
Mm.
playing the Boy and His Blob remake. So that's on the Wii, and I've been enjoying that as well. But oh yeah, and then I have a Let's Play series going on of Mega Man 9 on the Let's Play channel. Two parts are coming out. One more is still on the way. So what about least favorite platformers? You mentioned some of your favorites. Any least favorites?
Least favorite. That's an interesting one because I typically don't think about my least favorite one. Too scary to think about. But you got stuff like Bubsy. That one's up there. Oh, what was this other one that you mentioned a boy and his blob. The original boy and his blob. I did not like that one as a kid. Absolutely hated it.
Okay, so
It was just
you played it on NES then.
yeah.
Okay, I haven't. I played it on an emulator back in the early 2000s, but it's like right on the precipice where I put the time limit on, and I didn't get very far. Something that I did discover about that game after I did the tier list, I didn't actually do any, but it's like when I was looking up for the box art, because obviously I mentioned it when I was ranking it. I did not know that it was from the creator of Pitfall. Like David Crane it was his game. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. I guess that was. I mean, it was a very ambitious title, but that's kind of also I think kind of was the problem with it is that it was a bit cryptic and difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Especially when you're like an 8-year-old.
yeah, and especially if we compare to the remake, which starts a lot slower and only cranks up the difficulty with the jelly beans, much slower as time goes on. Well, we can roll back around to the least favorites. Any comments? If you look at the top rank, because in my tier list what the top ranked games were. Any ones there that surprise you? Because it's going to be a lot of the same stuff that you kind of mentioned. There's going to be a lot of Mario, a lot of Sonic, a lot of Mega Man, a few Castlevanias, and Partridge in a Pear Tree.
It's not really that surprising of a list, to be honest. There's some really solid picks up there.
Yeah.
Although you are missing, actually, you're missing stuff like Mario World. That's
No,
a
no, no.
big one, but
Well, yeah, not in the top rank, but you will see that it's the very first that's in the Nido rank. But yeah, so that was something that I did discuss. That
I, yeah,
in
I
the
know you mentioned this before, but I would have put Wario Land 2 and 3 up all the way up there as well.
Yeah, yeah, but I haven't played those at all. And another game that annoys me that I had to leave off the ranking, but I had to seriously stop and think about it, and then I thought, yeah, no, I have not played this game like at the very latest since 2001. So it was Super Mario Land 2. So that one's absent from the ranking as well. I have played it, but I just don't have any distinct memories of playing it. So on the basis of that, like, okay, no, I'm not gonna rank it then. So
That's a shame. That's a really good Mario game.
yeah, I'm sure it is good, and don't get me wrong. Like the most that I've been exposed to, and I think I mentioned this also, either in the rank video or in some Let's Play, was that when Akolong did his video on it, some while ago. I'm gonna use that. That's a better than a little while ago. I always tempted to say a little while ago, but it could have been like 2 years ago, and time just flies by. But the thing is like that's the most that I've been exposed to it since. But that's not the same as playing the game. That's completely different. Okay, so you don't have much to say about the least favorites. So
No, because as I said before, I don't tend to focus on
least
least favorites.
well, least favorite Mario
I'd
game.
much rather focus least favorite Mario game. Probably Lost Levels.
Yeah, that's in the bottom rank for me as well. Yeah, so original Mario 2 or Lost Levels exactly.
I mean,
And
I don't think it's a bad game per se. I just think it's a very lazy game. I mean, it's just Mario 1, but with like bowls difficult levels.
Yeah, I mean
It's like a
that's
master quest.
yeah, that's the thing that I get out of it as well. It's like a pro level pack for people who played Super Mario Brothers 1 too much and want more challenge. And don't get me wrong, there I think there's something, there's always room for getting a harder, slightly cranked up, amped up version of a game. But, with limits, yeah, Lost Levels is like that's one of those like, that's like the only Nintendo sequel that I can say where they they just kind of completely dropped the ball, did no real evolution of the actual game and what have
All,
you.
all I will say is, all I will say is, I'm glad we got the other Mario Brothers 2 released
Yeah,
instead of that one in English. Well, I mean, we did get Lost Levels eventually,
yep,
but you know what I mean.
yeah. Least favorite Sonic game?
Oh, that's tricky because my least favorite Sonic game isn't a 2D platforming one.
Yeah, that's another that was my problem as well.
But if we're going
What is your
like
least favorite that's not a 2D platformer?
that's not a 2D platformer, um, that's it's either going to be Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 or Sonic Labyrinth for the Game Gear.
Okay, yeah. I've heard of both of those games, and Sonic 06 is kind of infamous. I kind of, I've said this before that I actually kind of want to play that game, but I have to track it down somehow first of all.
Well,
And I know something
well,
about Sonic Labyrinth that's like a slow game.
yeah. Well, the whole point of that story is Robotnik steals Sonic's shoes, so Sonic can't run in that one. But in reality, it's just a reskin version of a game that came out in Japan, but they just put a Sonic theme over it to help sell more copies.
Ah, so they did a Doki Doki Panic or a Mario 2 on it. So
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The one that I ranked like my all-time least favorite Sonic game is Spinball. So that's the one that I don't like. But that one I also, because that's not a platformer really. It's mostly a pinball game.
Mm.
So I did end up ranking the Master System Sonic, the first one, as my least favorite. And even that,
Oh, you monster!
yeah,
That's a great version of Sonic.
it's
A
not.
very misunderstood version of
It,
Sonic.
it's not like I think they did their best with the technology at the hand. So don't get me wrong, I'll applaud them for that. But yeah, that is not a game that I come back to very readily. Um, but that's the other thing. But actually, yeah, you say, but it's difficult to think about the least favorites. I mean, there's always going to be like that one game that kind of because I
Mm.
like platformers, but sometimes you just end up on like a stinky pile and you just cannot ignore it. So that's the other thing. That one that might have even shocked some people is that I put like the Lion King game at the very bottom as well, like because that game is also not fun. Uh, but that's the thing that the thing that I if you look at the rankings because I was trying to kind of put like that there's going to be 3 ranks for bad games, 3 ranks for good games, but something that I've been thinking about subsequently, well, the whole tier list ended up a bit top heavy because of that, but I'm tish. So but that kind of made me think like, oh, okay, maybe I should have just had like 2 ranks for like actually bad games and then or like games that may not be objectively bad but which I don't like. That was kind of the decidedly mid rank that was in there. And because then there would have been more like more of a what am I trying to say, a scale. There would be a bigger scale, more of a yeah, to place the games that I like because some games are just like okay, this game's not amazing or anything, but I get a but I get in a good mood while playing it, so that goes there. And this is a competently made game, but I don't really care about it, so it would have been made it a bit easier to rank all of those things. Yeah, you mentioned Bubsy. That was another game that I excluded because I have played Bubsy, the original, but like literally back in like '96 or something. Like that's how far back you have to go for me to have any fresh Bubsy memories. And you mentioned Gex. That's another one I have never played. And Rayman is also another one that I'm completely in the dark about, except the first one. Yeah. So, but yeah, none of the other Raymans. I have not played any of them really. Yeah.
That's a shame. I reckon you would really like Rayman 2 and 3. And the sort of reboot 2D platformer games like Legends and whatnot. I
Yeah.
reckon you would really
Ray,
enjoy those.
Rayman's an IP that I do respect because it managed to do that with the remakes. It managed to kind of come back because don't get me wrong, like we've had a lot of, well, another example, quite a few examples actually, like something like Super Frog and Rocket Knight Adventures, which I did rank, had modern remakes that bombed. So there's no hope for a follow up to those. So I do respect Rayman immensely that it had a modern remake that actually became so successful that it revived the whole IP basically, and now it has managed to keep going. So there's that. So there's that. And oh, hey, least favorite. Well, it's right on the screen, so no wonder it popped into my head. Least favorite Mega Man game. And you can throw in your least favorite
Most
X game while you're at it as well.
X game. The X. Oh, we're talking about extreme sports now with the X games. Nah, I'm kidding. My least favorite Mega Man one is Mega Man X7, or
Okay.
as I like to call it, where the fuck is Mega Man?
Yep. And the
'Cause you
least
don't get
least
to play. Yeah, because you don't get to play as Mega Man till like halfway into the game, and the level design is also not that great. I mean, I like how they can switch between like a 3D platforming mode to like a 2D platforming mode, but the controls and whatnot just feel so incredibly awkward, or I should say the controls and the levels just feel incredibly awkward to where I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. Actually, no, I can think of a Mega Man game that's even worse than that. Come to think of it,
yes.
this game is really bad. I've blocked it out of my mind. Mega Man Network Transmission for the Nintendo GameCube. Now I see some people
Ah.
actually like that. I see people actually like that game, but not me. I mean,
So
I love the idea. You take
that's the GameCube title from the Battle Network series, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
it is. I mean, I love the idea of taking the Battle Network series and turning it into classic Mega Man, but the way they approach it is just complete. It's it's just a complete waste. Like, I love the idea of like giving him like the battle cards he uses like special ammunition, but he's Mega Blaster. How useful do you think his Mega Blaster is in the game?
Well, considering it's like the weakest weapon in the Battle Network, so I'm assuming not very.
Yeah, it's like it turns a regular enemy into a boss fight, and ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can blast through like those chips so quickly. Like you have to really strategize about how to use them, which takes away a lot of the fun. So if you try going all gung ho like classic Mega Man style, it's just like throwing a pea at a giant. It
Uh,
just you're not going to do any damage
okay.
unless you feel a giant with a lot of peas.
Yeah.
But
Okay, that's an interesting one. I have heard that game has some janky mechanics, and it is a 2.5D platformer. You said X7 is your least favorite, but that's not a 2D platformer though. So
no, the one game in the X series that's not a 2D platformer.
yeah. So so you've never played X6 then?
I have, like, briefly,
Oh yeah,
but not enough to form an opinion.
oh well, that's easily, in my opinion, the worst Mega Man game. Period. It's ungodly. It's unplayable, basically, and it's all the levels have horrible these annoying gimmicks. The production quality is a bit slipshotty, and the main problem is like there's no it has a little bit of the same problem as Lost Levels as well. Like very few normal levels. It's absolutely like you have to be like a god tier Mega Man player in order to get any progress out of
Wait,
that.
is that the Mega Man game where there's like a big giant pit you have to jump and it looks near impossible to jump, but you just have to like dash jump over it like right at the last moment.
Isn't that all of them? Maybe. XX was, because, X5 was supposed to be officially the final game of the series, because, Keiji Inafune then went to work on Mega Man Zero, which I've not played it either, so that those didn't get ranked either.
Those ones are pretty decent.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like, X6 is like a very, very, ham-fistedly made sequel that introduces a bunch of like characters that would never appear in anything after that point. So in my view, compared to that, X7 is an absolute breath of fresh air because they actually did something because they did something new with it. Yeah, I know you have a deep-rooted hatred for X7. I personally like it. I do agree with you. The same. I do think it's bullshit that X is not the playable for a long time. But that was actually like even in like I understand like in Japan they even marketed it very heavily, like, oh yeah, this is going to be a new hero, but they didn't do that for the Western version because Mega Man is in the title. So at that point you might as well why not throw in like a subtitle, Adventure of Axel or something, like at least like clue you in. But yeah, definitely like X7 is clunky. I will give you that. But I think they could have honestly honed in on those elements that were still very clunky. But then they did, ironically, the thing which allowed me to then place the next game on the ranking. So it was 2D and 2.5D platformers. So of all the X games, X7 was the only one that I wasn't able to rank because it's primarily a 3D platformer. And then X8 just went into straight 2.5D on that front. Yeah. So another one that's actually one of my least favorites, but I put it in the decidedly mid because it's not like horrible. It's like I've never been a big fan of X2 either, but people might.
That one was okay.
It's so bland. It's like it's like so much like the first game, but without anything that set it apart. Like X3.
I also found it.
Yep.
I also found it pretty easy for an X game as well.
X2.
Yeah. Well, first half of it's pretty easy.
Okay,
I was able to get through that without any trouble.
Okay, interesting. I kind of had it. I even said this in the ranking that I've actually replayed X2 a lot more in recent years because I've tried very hard to kind of find something worthwhile in it, but yeah, I haven't really quite nailed it. But although we did make a great cartoon out of it with Ekulung, so that's something good that has come out of it at least. What about Castlevania? Do you have much experience with Castlevania?
Got some experience with it.
Yes. Any favorites, least favorites, games that stick out?
Some of my favorite ones. Super Castlevania 4 is really good. Really like that one. Castlevania the New Generation, or Bloodlines as the Americans call it, although Bloodlines is the better version. That's a really fun one. What else do I really like? Castlevania 1, the original, that's still a really fun one to go to, although it's definitely aged over the years, I'm not going to lie. It is a bit rough in spots to where you might as well just play Super Castlevania 4 or New Generation. But for least favorites, I would have said Castlevania 2, but that game's slowly growing on me. Going back to favorite ones. But my most favorite one in the series is Rondo of Blood, the PC Engine one.
Okay.
What they did with level design, characters, they just took that 2D aspect and pushed it to the extreme and made a really good game that we never saw in English until at least a good, 20 so years after it came out in Japan.
Okay, that one took me by surprise. I was totally expecting you to say some other game, but yeah, that's Rondo of Blood is my favorite too. So I made a whole video about it many years ago as well.
What, you're expecting me to say Symphony of the Night?
Well, a little bit, yeah. Are you not big into Metroidvanias then?
When it comes to the Castleroid games, I liked Symphony of the Night, but it actually took me some time to get into it because of how it just, when you get past the first area, it just sort of throws you in the deep end. You have to really explore. But once you sort of figure all that out, it becomes a really enjoyable game.
Yeah, I that was actually the reason why I left out the Metroids because I felt like I can't really give these a fair assessment. The one that I played the most is Super Metroid, which objectively fixes a lot of problems that I have with the original Metroid, but it's just not my kind of game. So, but
Mm,
ironically, there is one Metroidvania in the ranking. I had to put in Circle of the Moon because that's the first Game Boy Advance
that's a
game
good
that
one too.
yeah, that's the first Game Boy Advance game I ever had, and back in 2014 I actually did try to beat it. I think I got up to Dracula, but it's been a long enough while that I haven't. But I've really been for a good number of years now. I've actually been itching to get back to it, but I've lost or I've misplaced my Game Boy player, so so I can't play it
Uh,
right now. So.
the Nintendo DS ones like Portrait of Ruin are pretty good too.
Yeah, I never, but
Although you will get distracted by the second screen, but if you like the Game Boy Advance ones, you'll like those ones too.
yeah, but like I said, I'm not really big into Metroidvania. It is mostly nostalgia, but I also really like the soundtrack to that one. So that's another reason why I really enjoy it. So and what you said about Castlevania 2 is that's been kind of slowly growing on you. And I have, there was a time when I was like, okay, Castlevania 2, great soundtrack, but not the greatest game. For years I was kind of like, I was just kind of like repeating what everybody else was saying. And then kind of to me, what happened to me was over time, you know what? I kind of like it. It's actually, I just get into such a good mood when I play it. And, case in point, on my Let's Play channel, you can watch me play through the whole goddamn game. So it
The
is.
biggest problem with that, the biggest problem with that game though is it's just the genre is just practically different from the original one because the original was just right to the point, all
Yeah, yeah,
arcadey
and
action.
it's
Then
and
the
it's
second one, you
very
actually have to
yeah, it's very
search around,
cryptic.
feel around a bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's very cryptic. Like that's the number one thing. That is not the Castlevania game you wanna. If you wanna get into the series, like you don't want to start with two. Definitely don't. But
No, jump
but
into two after you've played around with the Metroidvania ones a little bit.
that could be. But like I would say, just take a walkthrough with you, and you'll you'll save a lot of time and have a much better time like that.
But
It is
before we
fun.
move on,
Yeah, sorry.
sorry,
No, we're not. I'm
talking
not.
over each other.
Actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about the other ones that you mentioned. I actually, because a lot of the favorites that you said are my favorites as well. I actually do like OG Castlevania better than Super Castlevania, but I do agree that, for instance, Bloodlines, new generation, that one has grown on me as well because I think that the first couple of times I played it, I thought like, well, this doesn't feel that special. But definitely like a couple of years ago, I want to say 2021, I played through the whole game and I thought like, wow, this actually is a legit, really, really good game. Like, it really, I kind of fell in love with it at that point. So there's that. Oh, okay. Least favorite Castlevania. This one is surprising too because this one also came to me not in 2021, but I think 2020. It was the first time I finally got to play the Castlevania adventure. My
Ooh.
God. Because another hot take here is like Castlevania 64, another maligned entry in the series. But once I got it on N64 and I played all the way through it, like I actually like that game. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that one's growing on me too.
Yeah, yeah. It is clunky. That's the thing. It is a bit like with me with X7 as well. Like, yeah, they didn't get everything right out of the gates. So absolutely. But lovely characters. And especially like playing it with a proper controller does help a lot. Like I think that's the other thing is like when I played Castlevania 64 for the first time, it was on an emulator, and I had no clue like what the hell is this button layout. But then it makes a lot more sense when you actually have a controller and what's what. Yeah.
For me, my least favorite Castlevania game is arguably worse than that Game Boy one, Castlevania Adventure. and it's the arcade one called Haunted Castle. I don't know if
Ah,
you ever played that one before.
you know what? I have, but it has been a hot minute. That one I think technically would have fit within the last 20 years category, but like, I played it like only once. I don't remember what it was. I mean, it had to be on some emulator, but I don't remember the context anymore. But I have seen other people subsequently play it. There are some. The most that I know about that is that some of the soundtrack's pretty good, but like, okay, so
Yeah,
what are your
soundtrack is
issues?
actually
Yep.
soundtrack is really good in that game. My problem with that one is the controls. They're so stiff. It feels like like it really does feel like that Simon is wearing way too much armor. It's just sort of moving slowly, slowly, and the enemies tend to actually no, the enemies always respawn way too fast in Castlevania. That's sort of the game's thing, but the difficulty in this one has been purposely ramped up, just so they can get all those money for the arcade machines.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but another thing that damages it is the continue system. The continue system is strange. Like when you die, you can have free continues, which that kind of sounds fair till you see how hard that game is. So you're not going to get far on free continues. But it also has another baffling feature. You can convert those continues into health. So as soon as you put in all your coins, you can just smash the continue button, and it just extends your health, which seems a bit unfair as well, to be honest. Yeah,
I,
maybe.
I don't. I don't.
Although there is nudity in that game. Granted, it's saggy old Medusa tits, but
Oh, you don't like saggy old Medusa tits, huh? You speciest.
they they turn me to they
Yeah,
turn
yeah,
me to stone.
yeah. Yeah, one part of you at least. All right. Hey, I was on the recording break looking at the little slideshow that we got going on. I want to hear your thoughts on this. What your opinions on Alex Kidd?
First one, Miracle World, that one was a fantastic one, and then the series just sort of quickly went down the shitter after that. I mean, you had stuff like High Tech World, which is absolutely terrible. I mean, I played the arcade version of that one, and the only thing that was or I should say, what makes that game terrible first, like running around and punching isn't bad, but the levels are just so cluttered to where it's like you can't run or jump around in that game and well without hitting something. But the only thing
Wait.
that I
Wasn't that the Lost Stars? High Tech Worlds is the adventure
oh,
game.
okay
Yeah,
okay
Lost
yeah,
Stars. Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Both those games are shit anyway.
Yes, but the other one is a bad adventure game. The
Yep,
other one's a
bad
bad
adventure game.
platformer. I had to remember this because I had to put them up both on tier lists.
Lost Stars then. Talking about Lost Stars.
Yeah, because I
That's
know
the
that
crowded
one. Yeah, I
one.
know that one was an arcade. Yeah.
That's the only thing that was entertaining about that one was there's an enemy in the arcade version, at least. It's a punk. It's a naked punk, and he's shitting out skulls at you.
He's in the
I
Master
kid you
System.
not.
Yeah, he's in the Master
He's
System
in the
version too.
Master System version too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Holy
That's the two outstanding things about that game that I remember is the punk farting out skulls and then the find the miracle ball thing. It's that it says at the start of every level. Yeah, and it has that same
yeah.
bullshit thing as Super Pitfall, where the power ups only appear when you jump. So that's annoying because it means like you have to be jumping regardless of whether or not you actually need to. So because you have to find the power up in order to be able to attack. And that actually kind of
Another
brings
one
me.
we'll talk.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, you go first.
No, I was
We
just
keep
saying.
talking over each other.
No, I was
You
just.
can tell we don't. We
It's like a couple of years ago, I finally got to play original Pitfall actually, and I did rank that, and that game has actually kind of.
that's
Yep.
that's a cool one. That one.
Yep. In a weird way, it kind of is the original Metroidvania when you stop to think about it. That the game only ends if you find all the gold. In other words, you just keep running around the jungle endlessly otherwise. Yeah. It's very addicting. I'm not very good at it, but I actually do enjoy playing it a lot. Yeah, sorry, Alex Kidd. So, luckily the picture came up to remind me. So, the one that we were just seeing, what about Enchanted Castle?
That one's just boring. going
Really?
around searching for things, trying to find a way out of the. Sorry, I'm talking. You're talking about Enchanted Cat. Sorry, I'm going back to the other one we missed out on. High Tech World.
Okay.
Um, we're getting all of our kids mixed up over here, ladies and gentlemen. But Enchanted Castle, that one's okay. N- Not quite as good as
That
Miracle
one
World. I mean, it
that
feels a little bit loose, if that's the correct word. It feels a bit loose and slippery. Enchanted Castle, like it
yeah,
just feels
okay,
like
yeah.
if
I'll
a
grant you
few
that.
tightenings of the bolts, and
Yeah,
it could have been a fantastic
yeah,
game.
I'll agree that the
It's
gameplay is a little bit slippery, but that's my personal favorite, and that's the one that's the only one that I've actually played. Well, okay, I have played Miracle World for maybe like 5 seconds on a Master System 2, just by pure coincidence. I happened to run across ones in Scotland, of all places. But I have played Miracle World a lot more on emulator, and then when I got it on the Wii. Uh, and I like Miracle World. The thing that kills it for me are the one hit deaths. That's the one that I can't really abide. And
yes.
and yes, Enchanted Castle has some of that, but I think the better production quality and the fact that I have actually played it as a kid, it just adds a little bit of nostalgia value to it as well. I personally like it a bit better. But yeah, granted, it's you know, that's a bit of a potato patata situation. I guess a little bit like, don't get me wrong. I think Miracle World is still those two I think are the outstanding titles of the entire franchise. The rest of it is kind of whatever. Oh, but well, have you played Shinobi World?
Yes, I have, and that one is oh so decent. I mean,
It's
but it
decent, but
really is.
it's decent,
It's
but
just
it's
a
not.
Shinobi game.
Yeah, it's a
So
Shinobi game. It's not really an Alex Kidd game, basically.
yeah,
What about the? I know I only very vaguely know about this one, but there wasn't there a more like a modernish Alex Kidd game that Sega released like a few years ago already.
yes, it was. I played a little bit of that, and it is interesting. I mean, it's mostly the same old game, but they added new levels to it. And the thing that's awesome about that is you can switch between like graphics, like classic graphics and modern graphics. And it's really cool when you play classic graphics because you get like the levels that weren't in there before in there now, but with like the classic graphics, and that's just really awesome.
So is it like based on the first one or the second one? Sorry,
The
the
first,
oh, the first one. Okay,
it, yeah, it's
okay. Well,
based on
that
the first one.
explains. Well, that actually, I think that explains a bit because I seem to think that I have very, very little information on this. I have no clue, but like that might be the only other game where but if it's based on the first one, then it makes sense that there's the bad guy King Janken is in that one because in all the other ones it's always some rando that we never saw anywhere else. Yeah.
King Jake, and I always thought he looked like the wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage when I was a kid. He just has that sort of sunglasses, bearded, hatted look that that wrestler had.
Yeah, or is it like a Viking head? We'll have the box art, or I have the Japanese box art in there because
Okay,
I love.
I've got two questions for you about Miracle World.
Yes,
When you played it, which version did you play? Did it have hamburgers or did it have rice bowls?
I've played. I've only played. I think I've only played the Rice Ball versions because I think that's the one on the Master System. But like I said, I only. I mean, the one that was built into the Master System too. But then the one that's on the Wii is also the Rice Ball version. So yeah.
Yeah, when I grew up with it on the Master, because I also played it through like Master System 2 as well as an inbuilt game. But the version that I played growing up was it had hamburgers instead of rice balls.
Yeah, yeah, I'm aware that Sega did that. Okay, there it is.
Hmm.
I was wondering like if it was like a Viking hat, but it's got like a single horn coming through from the middle.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be an ogre, isn't he? A horny ogre?
A horny ogre. Yeah,
Donkey, get over here!
yeah, or what? Yeah, or what? Oni, if we're going with the Japanese things. The thing I love about the Japanese box for Alex Kidd is the fact that it's such a shameless ripoff of the Super Mario Brothers box. It's actually really endearing. Yeah, genuinely. It's the same way I feel with like Jazz Jackrabbit, like how Jazz Jackrabbit. Like, so, especially the first one, like how shamelessly it rips off Sonic the Hedgehog. But I actually find that very endearing. Personally, I think it's kind of cute. I was thinking about talking about some more least favorite games, but maybe we'll circle around back to that. Another question is game mechanics in platformers. Are there certain game mechanics in platformers that you either love or hate? And specifically in platformers, yeah. So, any that jump to mind?
Anything that jumped up. Lack of jumping for once. Like Bionic Commando. As much as I like Bionic Commando, a little jump button would have helped for that one.
Well, is it really a platformer
Whatever.
then if there's no jump button?
That's a good question, actually. Because I
I,
consider stuff like Prince of Persia to be like platformers or cinematic platformers. Heck, I even consider
yeah, it is.
Karateka to be a
Yep.
platformer, but that's more of like a beat 'em up now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
like
they're
something.
definitely when you get into the beat 'em ups and things. Yeah, that's where I kind of draw the line, and I also kind of draw the line on
Mm,
the Shinobi and Ninja Gaiden games. Except, although I haven't played Ninja Gaiden anyway, so I wouldn't. Well, I'm not entirely sure how I would rank that anyway. But one where I was a little hazy um, on the inclusions. But the point was that it had to be a game where there had to be platforming, as in you have to jump over stuff or you die. That as a key mechanic.
okay.
So, and if that's not in there, then it could be like, because there was one game that I ranked that it just barely squeaked by the skin of its nuts, as Ekelung would say, was Adventures in the Magic Kingdom, because that is like a multi-level, dealio. There's like 5 levels. Two of them are platformer levels. The three other ones are something else. It just like I think like, can I include that? Well, that is 40% of the
That's more
game.
of a variety game at that point, isn't it?
It is, but the problem, yeah, the thing is also like one of the games you basically can't lose. So I don't know. I didn't rank it very high. Like, even though it's a childhood game of mine, like that one where I did not let the nostalgia talk me into like ranking it highly. I recognize for what it is, but I wanted to absolutely talk about it because I had I had a whole separate category for the Disney games. You know what? That's a mechanic that I was just now that I did mention the Disney games, it kind of jumped into my head kind of randomly here, but I actually kind of like the box mechanic in the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers games. That was kind of a unique way of giving you a way to attack people, but also give you a chance to like just duck and cover temporarily.
Metal Gear Solid before Metal Gear Solid.
No, because
No,
well, Metal Gear came out a lot. Well, okay, Solid came later, but yeah, original Metal Gear.
don't ruin the joke, Hanu.
Yeah,
Just let me have this one. But
but I guess in a
I,
way it is like hiding in the box like Solid Snake, but
mhm.
that's it.
Ironically, it's a very out of the box way of thinking to,
Haha.
avoid damage in that game. But
Yeah.
I've played that one recently. It's actually a really good game. It's not too long, not too short. Oddly enough, it's not that difficult. I mean, you may get game over a few times, but it's an easy one to learn from.
So which one? Chip and Dale 1 or 2?
One.
Ah, okay. Well, it's funny because I kind of criticized 1 for having too many levels, but but whatever.
How every level's a letter in the alphabet.
Well, yeah. I think that's the thing that I kind of like a little bit better about the second one, is that it tightened up the thing. They kind of left out a lot of the bullshit, but I think I ended up ranking them kind of the same because overall, quality wise, they're still both really good games. So yeah.
I
Uh,
heard the Mega Drive version of that game is pretty decent. Apparently, there's a Mega Drive version called Squirrel King.
oh, but that's a bootleg. That's not a real game.
Ah,
Yeah.
boo.
Nothing comes to mind for mechanics that you hate, other than I will say, like, uh, this is the thing that we're taking it back to Mega Man a little bit, is like in a game like Mega Man, where the default is typically to attack enemies from a distance, like like with shooting or something. When you suddenly are presented with a weapon that requires you to go closer to enemies to use it, that's something that I really hate. Like having to close the distance to do anything with a weapon. So I will say. So basically, I'm saying like there are certain like weapons in the Mega Man series that I'm not a big fan of, and especially in the X series. I really, really hated the. I hate playing as Zero if he does not have, a Buster.
Yeah, because he has all close range attacks
Yeah, in
with the
X4.
swords and whatnot.
Yeah, in X4, like I find Zero completely unplayable because of that reason. Yeah, so that's one.
Uh,
It's different in a game
you.
like Castlevania where the whip obviously you have to be a bit closer, but then you can get extensions on the whip and you do have the special
Mhm.
items as well. So you'd have like a backup, so you don't necessarily have to go right up to the bosses and what have you.
Funny you mentioned Castlevania Mega Man because you just remind me of a mechanic that I absolutely don't like in those games, and that is when you get hit, you get knocked back.
Ah, okay. So all right, yeah, that is a good point. Like the knockback can be. I do think it's there's a little bit of value in it that it dissuades you from cheating too much. Like you can't tank too easily. Like if you keep running into a big enough enemy, like it won't let you. You'll just keep falling back behind. But yeah, definitely in something like in Castlevania, the fucking Medusa heads. They always have to appear in a part where you'd have to do platforming. So that is something that, yeah, like
Mhm.
that is so frustrating because I start sweating bullets immediately when I start seeing like, oh no, there's one of them fuckers, you know, undulating towards me. Yeah. So
Al-
that I
Although, if you're good enough in why did I nearly call Castlevania Metallica? If you're good enough in Metal, where the fuck did that come from? But there's one spot I nearly said Metallica again. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But in Castlevania, there we go. There's
Yep.
a spot in the first level where you can actually use knockback to your advantage to,
Oh.
skip the whole like merman section,
Oh, interesting.
like like that room where you get the wall meat. That's.
Ew.
But in that room,
Come on.
but in that,
Wall chicken.
in
Come on.
that, wall
Wall
chickens,
meat.
okay. But
Gross.
in that room, sorry, in that room, if you jump at the right moment and get hit by a bat, it knocks you to like the top of that platform, and you just completely skipped over that whole bottom area.
Yeah. You know what? That's another thing mechanic wise. You said the bats. Flying enemies in platformers typically are, kind of used in a way. They're often used in a really annoying way to make difficulty cheaper because they come at you from an angle where it's difficult to anticipate. Like okay, somebody like an enemy walking across the ground. That's a little bit easier to avoid if you don't happen to have a weapon on hand or anything. But like, but yeah, when they're swooping down and coming at you from angles that you can't necessarily predict, that really gets on my nerves. Oh yeah, and I mentioned the
Gets
other.
even gets
Yep.
gets even worse when they holding items that spawn other enemies in it, like in Mega Man 2 of Airman stage.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or there. Yeah, you're talking about the birds. Yeah, yeah, and there's
Yep.
there's other ones. There's other examples, and actually, that's another mechanic I don't. I think I mentioned this already. Like, the thing that I always have a little bit of a problem with Alex Kidd is the one-hit deaths. Another game which I don't like specifically because it has one-hit deaths is Contra. So I did end up ranking. Yeah, I did end up ranking Contra pretty low. I put it in the decidedly mid territory, and I did actually, after I had done the video, I did actually go and play a little bit of Contra to see like was I being too harsh, and then like after the nth death on level 2, like no, no, I am not having a good time.
You're gonna love the Metal Slug games, then. They're like Contra on crack.
Yeah, no, I haven't played Metal Slug either. Any other more mechanics that you love or hate? Any mechanics that you absolutely love?
Secret areas, finding extra lives, that bit of the explorer value to a level.
Yeah,
It
I
gives you a really satisfying feeling that that you found something that you shouldn't have.
yeah, I like it when a game has like really good power ups. I have to say, like when
Oh
you when you
yeah.
when you get like a invincibility power up in a certain game, in some certain games, like especially if it's a very hard game, then being able to just run into enemies and haha, who's dying now? you know?
Heck, even just getting a projectile power up
E-
feels very good.
Exactly, exactly. I was about to get into that as we are seeing images of Mario games. That my favorite Mario power up to this day is still the fire flower from the first one. It's always like yes, I get to chuck fireballs at enemies. Like, take that. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I was just seeing the Mario Free box art pop up, and you remind me of the ability to fly in those games with the raccoon tails and the capes and one that also feels very satisfying,
Yeah,
especially when you use the cape because the cape is no way near as easy to use as the tail. Like the tail, you just run and glide, but
yeah,
with the
and
cape, you
it's
need to
a
like sort of maneuver it.
yeah
But
the tail is a lot
when you
easier.
master them, and
Yeah, because the tail is easier to control also because it's dependent on like how much you tap the button, whereas with Mario
Mhm.
World it's like a predetermined angle that you just automatically when you jump go. So yeah, yeah, I agree with it. But I do like with the tail and the cape, they also give you the hover ability, so you can slow down while falling down.
mm,
So that's another mechanic that I do like. Another mechanic that I don't like, and this is not so much a mechanic, this is more like a game design mistake. But I have a little bit of an issue in games where you're not entirely sure where your character is standing, and if that makes you like fall off platforms and stuff, that can get annoying. Like, I love this.
yes.
A great example. I love this game. It's one of my all-time favorite games, but it is a huge problem in Maui Mallard, the Donald Duck game. And especially because Donald is like leaning forward, so it makes it extra confusing to see like, okay, where can I stand? Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, you remind me of something else now. Is seeing things in the background that sort of blend in with the foreground to where you can't tell if it's like, oh, is this gonna kill me or not, or can I just run through it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That reminds me of another funny bit. So another one of the games that I did rank, and this was another one that I was honestly a little iffy on whether or not it counts as a platformer because it technically is also kind of like an adventure game, but
Ooh.
there is platforming in it, so I allowed it. So it was the Adams Family game by Ocean because I have a physical copy of that. I decided like, okay, I got to do this. So I'll include it. And I like that game. It's very clunky though. And one kind of fucky part about it, well, it's not a problem for me, but it's a problem for my brother-in-law. He's red-green colorblind, and there's a section in the game where red apples are falling from trees and you have to dodge them or you take damage. And he cannot see them. He cannot see them falling down. He can't separate the apples from the trees. So that kind of thing. But what you were saying, like, it's kind of the same. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific example. But yeah, I've definitely had that happen in some games as well, where a background detail is actually like an enemy or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a kind of like an art direction faux pas, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's bad. That's kind of bad. I'm trying to. I was wondering like if I had. I also like don't like in some games like you have like attacks that are really difficult to connect anyway. Something like the Mega Man DOS game, the first one where most of the enemies are too low for you to hit. But I'm trying to think of another example of that. I honestly can't really think of right now. So I have another question here. Favorite overall platformer series?
Ooh, I grew up as a Sega kid, but it's definitely more Mario on my end, only because of the Wario Land series is part of it.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. Yeah, Mario is kind of difficult to top, but I think I am a bit more of a Mega Man guy at the end of the day. I always kind of tend to go back to Mega Man a lot more. In recent years, but Mario is always good. Mario is always good when you pick it up, with that one exception that we mentioned, which is Lost Levels, but we don't have to talk about that. We don't have to talk about that. But I'm definitely like, yeah, you talked about X, but you couldn't name like a classic series Mega Man game that was your least favorite.
Um, Not really. I like them all.
Even the DOS ones?
Those don't exist.
Well, they do because
Yeah,
I ranked them. Yeah, my least favorite really is 10. I've never been a big fan of 10.
I played a little bit of 10.
Yeah,
But my
yeah. Go ahead. Yep.
I have yeah, just remind me, I have played the DOS version, and I'm just like, why am I playing this? This is pure hell.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. My issue with 10 really, it's not really that the game is like objectively terrible. It's just that there's nothing outstanding about it. It's like we made this because Mega Man 9 was so successful, and you could it just it's just so generic. The robot masters don't stand out at all, except Sheepman. He's my personal favorite. But everything else is so like mid about it. So it's really
yeah.
I don't really get the hankering to come back to it. And 9 is another one that well, I did want to go back to because after I talked about it in the tier list video, that's when I did the let's play. But the let's play has kind of confirmed some of the things that I don't really like about that game going back to it. And when it's like how bare bones like the level design or how basic the level design is, and they had to make it that way because they got rid of some of the mechanics and things in those games. But yeah, so Mega Man overall, though, my favorite series, though, so, probably. But Mario is pretty close, I will admit. We haven't really talked about the Donkey Kong series. Any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I went a bit ape there.
Yep.
Um, really loved the Donkey Kong series as a kid. Actually, I love it now, but when I go back to Donkey Kong Country, when you're collecting like the Kong letters and I'm just like, this is just a reskin version of Mario World without the power-ups. It's just like collecting the dragon coins. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very fantastic game, but I just thought that element just somewhat bothers me as a grown-up.
Yeah.
It shouldn't bother me. I mean, it's not like it's not a bad mechanic.
Yeah.
But
You said the
something like
first
that
Donkey
just
Kong Country, but what about the 2 and 3?
yeah. Mainly played the Game Boy versions of 2 and 3. And I see on your list you did not think highly of the Game Boy version of
No,
2.
that's Donkey Kong Land. That's different.
I don't know. Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Land 2, they're pretty much the same game where Donkey Kong Land and Donkey Kong Country 1, those are two completely different games. That's like
Well, okay, yeah,
bizarro
the
between
Game Boy
those two.
version, yeah, okay, fair enough. Like DK Land 2 is basically like a watered down Donkey Kong Country 2, but but DKC 2 is like my all time favorite. Great production quality, great levels. It does get like brutally difficult. I think even harder than the first Donkey Kong Country in places, but like I still enjoy it a lot. DKC 3 is something that I used to not think of as highly, but actually grown on me quite a bit more. Like, actually, the original Donkey Kong Country is the one that I kind of don't really have, I'm not that wild about. It's fun to pick up once in a while, but then I notice a lot more things about it that annoy me, like like the in the snow levels when it starts when the snow starts falling and like my eyes are like hurting trying to look at it. Like, oh god, what?
Or or if you want 100% that game, you need to find a bonus level within a bonus level.
Okay, now that's not the thing that I was thinking of. But the
I
point is,
know.
but the thing is like, and also like, there's not that much level variety. It's a lot of DKC one is a lot of caves. There's a lot of caves and mines, and you do get a nice lush jungle at the beginning. You get a nice pine wood forest in the middle. But then there's a lot of caves and mines, and yeah, there's the ice world, but not nearly as good as like DKC 2, where okay, first it's it's the pirate ship, then it's the lava world, then it's the swamp, and then it's the amusement park, then it's the weird ghostly valley thing, and then eventually you go up, K. Rool's castle. Nearly said something else there, and what about the Donkey Kong Country Returns titles?
Never played them.
Oh, never. Okay, interesting. There.
Oh no.
Yeah, they are. I really liked, especially Tropical Freeze. Tropical Freeze was really good, and Donkey Kong Country Returns was good, but I think it banked a little too hard on nostalgia. Like it revisits or it reuses pretty much all of the music from the first Donkey Kong Country, and it doesn't have the Kremlins anymore, but it feels very samey in certain ways. There are some new aspects, it but yeah, Tropical Freeze felt like a much more like a refreshing new title by comparison.
Have you ever played the handheld versions of Donkey Kong Country? Not Donkey Kong Land, but Donkey Kong Country,
No,
because it did.
I haven't.
Because
Yeah.
funny enough, it Donkey Kong Country has been ported to Game Boy Color, which is insane to think about, but it was ported pretty well. It's just the coloring's a bit weird because what do you expect? You turn like a 16-bit game into like an 8-bit one, and they did it well. Actually, what they added on to that one, they added it on like extra levels, like mini game levels, because I don't know, because Donkey Kong 64 had like those mini game things. It also added in more difficulties, which is pretty interesting. There's a difficulty that gets rid of the checkpoints, and there's a difficulty that gets rid of the DK barrels. So you're going to be in for a fun time there. And that version, the Game Boy Color version, got updated for the Game Boy Advance, but with just better graphics. And honestly, that version's a little disappointing because again, the coloring is just odd. Like you've seen the Kremlins, they're green. Well, for some reason they're pink in the Game Boy Advance version, but I'm only guessing it's because the screen is so small, to avoid the enemies blending into the background. That's the only logical explanation I can think of all the color changes. But if you're gonna play Donkey Kong Country, stick to the Super Nintendo one.
Yeah, yeah, I had intended to do so. Okay, and okay, I have one more question on my little piece of paper there. So, what's the platformer that you have played most recently?
This is gonna sound like an odd one, but Crash Bandicoot, but not the PlayStation one. No, 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 the Game Boy Advance one. Most people know Crash Bandicoot is like sort of like a 3D game, but you do get like those 2.5D segments. Well, the Game Boy Advance one is really just the 2.5D segments turned into its own game, and it's actually really decent. I mean, the game is short, but it does have all the elements of a Crash Bandicoot game all rolled in there. So you got like the platforming, you got the boxes defined, but it's just actually I guess most of the levels in those games are all pretty linear. I mean, you're just going from point A to point B, but it does capture all of that and just crams it into a Game Boy Advance cartridge,
Yeah,
which is
what's that one
insane to
called?
think about.
Yeah, what is that one called?
Ironically, I think it's called Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure.
No, I think that's a cute title. Yeah, at least because it would have been so easy to say Crash Bandicoot Pocket Adventure or something like that, or Crash Bandicoot Advance. By the way, can I just say I think I might have like I said Mario is almost always good, but I think I have a pick for my least favorite port of a Mario game, and it's actually Super Mario Advance, the port of Super Mario Brothers 2. Because
Just what I needed.
yeah, because of because they had the voice clips, and I think Nintendo went a little overboard. They didn't realize the characters don't have to say something every time they repeat an action or something. That was like a surprising little blunder by them, and because otherwise Super Mario Advance is kind of a fun. It's kind of like an amped up version of Mario
Yeah,
of Mario Brothers.
little remix version.
Yeah, a little
They
bit.
had the,
A
yeah.
little bit, but yeah, it's that thing. The voiceover is just being so obnoxiously repetitive is the thing that really drives me crazy about that one. I did mention this actually that already earlier in the podcast. My most recent platformer that I've played, is the Boy and His Blob. I'm really into that one, and I haven't touched Limbo in a few days. I probably should get back to that as well, and yeah, and then Mega Man 9 as well. And I am actually really thinking about like going back to some Sonic games in the near future as well. But yeah, those are the most recent ones that I've played. Well, Yeah, I don't have any more questions on my little piece of paper. Is there any other interesting highlights or observations from the tier list that you want to bring up here at the end?
I'm trying to look for the games that you missed so I can recommend those to you. Because there's I'm not seeing it here, but some games I recommend to you would be the Oddworld games, especially Abe's Odyssey. Like that came
Oh,
out right at the
well, yeah. Oddworld, yeah. Actually, the first Oddworld I have played. I guess I kind of blanked out on that one. It wouldn't be surprising. There were, like I said, there were three games that I blanked on. I completely forgot about. Well, this is really funny. Two games that I completely forgot about which I then in the tier video then had to quickly put them in as well at the last minute was like I forgot about Sonic and Knuckles and I forgot about Mega Man and Base. So two games that have like dual titles. But yeah, so actually yeah, so Oddworld. I guess that is kind of like a puzzle platformer sort of dealio. It's very unforgiving,
yes.
definitely. Yeah, It's
Sort
weird
of on
that
the tail end of the sort of on the tail end of like the cinematic platformer stuff, like Another World and Prince of Persia sort of style.
yeah. I
Only,
think
yeah, as you said before, a lot more unforgiving, especially when you have to like rescue everybody.
yeah.
That's when it gets brutal.
And then you brought up Prince of Persia and Another World. I have played both of those as well, but that was back in the '90s, so not recently. But yeah, but yeah, I just completely kind of blanked out on Oddworld. I think so. I have played it, but it's one of those games. It's very heavy to go into. You really gotta be like focused on that one because of what you said. Because your primary objective in that game is trying to save all the. I almost called them Gungans. What are they called?
I nearly called them the Munchkins.
We're both referring to the wrong mythical race. Uh, Damn it. Mudokons is in it, or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, it does have mud in the name somewhere. Yeah, okay. Any other interesting ones?
Yes. What platformers that aren't on the list that you haven't played before that you'd really like to play still?
Okay. Now we're getting into really, really large group there. Like I said, oh god, I just completely blanked out. Oh wow, just complete brain freeze. Well, I'm not okay.
Wow,
Well,
it's
this
weird
one I
seeing
haven't
you plus.
played. This one I haven't played, and I'm not super keen on it. But I have this morbid curiosity of the third Jazz Jackrabbit game, the one that was on Game Boy Advance. Uh, I know it's not like officially technically even like related to the first two games, but just out of sheer curiosity, I would kind of want to check it out. And then the thing that was bothering me when I was doing the Disney gaming rank, because I did get like all the really big ones in there, like most of the Capcom Disney games that the ones that were on the Disney Afternoon Collection, and then some randos like the Adventures in the Magic Kingdom, and then all the Sega the Sega Disney titles, so Mickey Enchanted Castle, Enchanted World with Donald and Mickey, I think is the name. I might have gotten that wrong. Quackshot, and then Maui Mallard, and then I had Hercules in there. I think some of those old Disney platformers would be fun to revisit, just to kind of get a bit more broad of an take on those. Oh god, I'm still trying to remember what I was about to say. Those ones definitely. I did mention that I have played like the demo of Earthworm Jim 2 like a really really long time ago, but beyond that, like I had no real idea about that one. So that's definitely one that I should revisit. Yeah, now I'm kind of like I said, I got completely blank. Oh, this one. It's on the N64. It's called Mischief Maker, and it's by Treasure. So I assume that it's actually pretty good. Bless
Sorry, I
you.
had to sneeze there. I've played Mischief Mate. Ugh, I've played Mischief Makers, and that game is a very like it or hate it game.
Okay.
I mean, the running around is fine, but it has like a grab mechanic that you're either gonna love and get used to it real quickly, or you're gonna hate to the point where you're gonna want to rip out your cartridge and throw it in the bin. It's definitely very like it or hate it. Although the
Okay.
art style in that one's really interesting. The main character's cute, but this game has like a weird obsession with like faces everywhere, and it gets a little bit creepy.
Well, you know what? It would be kind of interesting to see the. Although I'm not sure how I would even go about this, but it would be kind of interesting to see the the Amiga version of Super Frog. Oh yeah, James Pond. That's one that I
Oh,
have
that's an
definitely played.
interesting one.
I have definitely played like James Pond 2 like a long time ago, but just in general as a series, that's one that I would actually want to experience again.
Have you ever played Zool,
No,
the little ninja, the gremlin ninja?
yeah, no.
That's like Sonic on crap. Not Taylor says Sonic on crap. Oh no!
You know,
I just hope he's not rolled up while he's taking one. But anyway,
that would be fun to try out
yeah.
because that one is by Gremlin, which is one of my favorite like defunct game companies. Gremlin in general. Gremlin has a lot of games that I've never played that I would love to play, but not all of them are platformers. So that's the reason I'm not mentioning them right out of the gates like that. The third game that I forgot about and then included though, it's been rolling around in our little slideshow. There's a weird game called Euphoria, and that's technically like one of the 3 Metroidvanias that got in there. It's a very weird, obscure game, but if you like Metroidvanias, you might enjoy it. It's actually really cute. And then one that I completely forgot about entirely, it didn't even make it into the rankings at all, but it would have ranked pretty low, is Dracula X, aka Vampire's Kiss, which is that not really, but sort of.
wasn't that sorry, wasn't that an old song by Seal? Kiss from a vampire.
Yeah, no,
That's a
it's
terrible joke. I
yeah.
apologize.
People call it like a butchered port of Rondo of Blood, but it's not really even a port.
Yeah.
It's an own game that uses music from Rondo of Blood, and it does have Richter as the main character, but that one has like really shit, level
It's
design.
a poor man's Rondo of Blood.
It's not even that. It's got really annoying like level design. It's not fun to play at all. And actually, the thing that I've been thinking about as well is, I did the adventure game tier list and I did this, and I've been thinking about like, do I want to do another one of these like ginormous, tier list thingies? But honestly, I'm kind of having a hard time because I don't think there's like a single genre specifically that I have enough games in to include here. Although obviously because I excluded the 3D platformers, that could be. But that one I think I'm a little ill-equipped for because I'm actually not that big of a 3D platformer guy. It's like I'm afraid like if I start listing all the 3D platformers that I could put in the tier list, like it's gonna be a pretty short list. Now that we have the image here, I'm vaguely curious of maybe some of these Shantae titles, but yeah, maybe, but I'm not. But maybe I'm not like super wild.
Oh, I just saw the Euphoria one too, and that reminds me of another game by Sunsoft that you might like. It's sort of this game's sort of like a hybrid between like Kirby and Mega Man. It's a game called Mr. Gimmick. You're like this little green dragon dino creature, and you throw around stars.
Okay.
And you can also ride the stars as well. That's not a good job at describing the game, but the game does have a gimmick to it.
You know what? This is another one this one has been sitting and rotting away in my brain for years and years and years, and I have no idea what the hell this game is. So I don't know. This is like. This is going to be like, have you seen this dog kind of an announcement here. But like years and years ago, I had a friend who had an Amiga computer, and we did play, the original Amiga Super Frog on it. There's one platformer that I remember that had an alien who had to carry around these geometric shapes. Like there was like a square and a circle and a triangle. And for some reason, you always had to get them to the end of the level or something like that. I have no clue what the hell this game is. I don't know what it's called. I don't know who made it, but I do remember it exists, and it drives me nuts.
What?
At one point, I was
What?
trying to kind of Google for it as well. I was looking like platformer, Amiga, alien, geometric shapes, and absolutely nothing came up. So, if somebody can tell me what the hell is this game that I remember, or am I mixing it up with some maybe two different games or something like that? It would be enormously helpful because it bothers me immensely that I remember this game, but I don't know anything about it. I don't even know enough to search for it online.
Trying to think, what did this alien look like? Was it just like the standard green? We come
I
from
no no
Uranus
no no
alien?
yeah no not like an alien gray with a big bulbous head or anything like that. I seem to recall that it's maybe a cute alien with cartoon eyes. But that's another one. Like I said, I have very, very vague memories of this game. I know that it was on the Amiga, and that's about it. Like I have beyond that, I have zero clue. Oh, you know what? There is another one. This is a weird one. This probably means absolutely nothing to anybody. But I kind of want to try out this game called The Apprentice, which is one
You're
of
fired.
no, not that one. It's it's a platformer for the Philips CDI. It's one of the very few platformers that exists for that system, but it's reportedly actually really good. So that's why I kind of want to try it out. It's not the same as Wizard's Apprentice. That's a completely different game that's also on the CDI, but it doesn't seem to have anything to do with this other one. It's kind of weird because it's just called that. The art style looks really cute. That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of curious about it. You don't have anything else to add? No. Okay.
No, I do not.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this random platformer podcast, whatever the hell I end up calling this. Thank you for Kaiser. Thank you to Kaiser for showing up. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. Either way, it's feedback, whatever. And see you on the next one. You want to say bye bye to the audience? Laters.